Nobody knows when flowers were first noticed by human beings and began their transition from the wild to the garden. All we can say is that as key components of gardens, beautiful flowers reflect attitudes to life. But the fact remains that human beings did somehow learn how to live together with flowers. Out of the ever-changing pattern of seasons, horticulture developed, tending to plants, not for sustenance, but spiritual satisfaction. Horticulture is about time and people. Without time, there would be no expectations. Without people, there would be no stories.
I think the one thing about gardening that makes it different from many other professions or walks of life is that actually you can create something which has permanence.
It's a constant dialogue between the flowers, the gardeners, and the gardens. East or west, no matter where you go, universal aesthetic values are embodied in flowers. But there's one discipline above all that helps people incorporate this innate love of flowers into their daily lives: horticulture, a life lived immersed in flowers. How is it that horticulture is able to give us so much inspiration? This is a fine example of a private garden in southern China, epitomizing the aesthetic tradition of the Oriental garden. Warm and humid, the climate of southern China is ideal for the growth of vegetation. As the seasons change, so do the variety of plants that come to the fore, transforming the garden into an ever-changing place of vitality and delight. Architecture, landscaping and plants, these are the three essential elements of the classical Chinese garden. As you walk along the winding paths of the garden, new scenery constantly reveals itself, and thanks to the rich variety of plants here, coupled with painted walls and black tiles, the garden becomes a picturesque, graceful and poetic artistic whole. Such gardens really are a living homage to nature. Chinese people are good at highlighting rare plants in the landscape. The humble administrator's garden in Suzhou, built in the early 16th century, is a fine example of a southern Chinese garden, an almost perfect symbol of delicacy and beauty. Zhao Jiaming, a young horticulturalist, is learning how to tend bonsai from his master Fan Minliang, who is responsible for managing over 900 pot plants in the garden. Zhao Jiaming's main job is to take good care of hundreds of old varieties of rhododendron bonsai planted by his master.
人们呢肯定喜欢大自然的东西，特别一些花草啊、树啊，但是这些东西都是长在我们的室外、我们的大山里，或者一些泥土上面，不可能我们把它搬到家里来，所以我们就慢慢的发展成把一些树用人为的力量把它种植到盆里去，把它怎么样养得更加好，更加模仿自然的形态。 种进盆里去之后呢，我们就可以连盆端到我们的房间里、我们的室内进行一个观赏，可以看到大自然的一个景象。
Get a pot and then fill it with flowers, trees, bamboos and stones. Once trimmed, shaped, decorated and set against a proper backdrop, you have bonsai. Bonsai creates a miniature natural landscape, all within arm's reach. In the 1960s, Zhu Zi'an, a bonsai master in Suzhou, began to cultivate rhododendrons in the humble administrator's garden. After 3 generations of hard work, bonsai rhododendron has become a new draw for the ancient garden.
就是根基走远方向，搿搬回下来，是吧？搬回下来，是吧？一围，再2围，2围就成片了。这个一片就是一片，2弯大。你看这个枝片往下扎，再枝片往下扎，有个半弯呢，就是在这里，就是一根粗枝半弯。
一般来讲呢，像现造盆景，直接动打水，像水质啊，包括你花嘛，一种最基本的工作。有的呢，会得接回水，慢慢接菜蔬子高后，才会得让它烧水。像主生园呢，是烧泡盆景比较有代表性的一个地方。搞起来呢，大菊花造盆景是比较好的一种烧材，因为呢萌发力强。 比鸡蛋糯米那个板蛋糯米，像是师傅已经帮伊讲，像是造盆景一个好档呢，刀看刀造，造比较重要。
A tree flourishing in a pot, a miniature vista of verdant mountains. That's the essence of the art of bonsai. Reflect the majestic in the petite. Master artisanship with persistence. It is what Fan Min Liang expects of his students.
可能种花，看到种好了一棵小苗，我们种了一棵杜鹃花，把小苗种下去，可能第1年、第2年不会开花，到了第3年，它就慢慢的开始开花了。这种心情的愉悦感，就是有一种成就感一样的感觉。我就觉得我3年的付出，我是值得的。这是一种自己对自己的一种成就感，可能。
Immersed in flowers and trees, gardeners wait patiently for their efforts to yield fruit. When springtime arrives, the humble administrator's garden will be in blossom. There's a philosophy implied in gardens, and in a very real sense, the blossoms that grow in them are a living manifestation of that philosophy. It's the philosophy that underpins horticulture, the art of cultivating plants in gardens. We create gardens to amble in, just as the bees like lingering around flowers.
So the appeal, flowering things, it's all the same passion, it's all the same fun, it's all the same excitement, it's the same excitement in the beauty and the history and the origin.
For centuries, the British royal family has been engaged in building and tending gardens. The Chinese garden was once regarded by the British as the best imitation of the natural landscape. In tribute to that, in 1762, a 10-story Chinese pagoda was built in Kew Gardens. The design and layout of Biddulph Grange Garden, built in 1842, reflects early Victorian ideas of gardens and people's desire for exotic flowers and plants. This was a time when exotic flowers were introduced into Britain in large numbers. It was during this period that a distinctively British type of garden began to develop.
Gardening in the UK was rather more parkland gardening. It was Capability Brown, Repton, these huge landscape parks and gardens as they were called, but they weren't really gardens.
Carhays Estate, a famous estate garden in Britain, is located in the southwest corner of England, about 5 hours' drive from London.
If you go back to 1900 or 1905, so what was garden like then? I mean, basically there was a wood with a lot of scrub, gorse, blackthorn, a complete scrubby mess such as you'll see on the side of the cliff when you look out of the window.
In 1893, at the age of 32, J.C. Williams joined the Royal Horticultural Society. By that time, gardening had come to symbolize freedom and beauty, gaining popularity at all levels of British society. As such, people began to desire more natural, diverse, and colourful gardens.
My great-grandfather's interest in plants and horticulture, he collected all the seeds, he collected the herbarium specimens. The way that you transported seeds was to embed them in wax. So the seed journey itself was taking 3 or 4 months. The packages coming back all the way back from China marked J.C. Williams, Carhays Castle. And I think my great-grandfather's idea was to create something different, something that was higgledy-piggledy. It wasn't formal, it wasn't planned, it wasn't laid out with great eye lines, it wasn't planned by colour, it wasn't planned on the geography particularly.
Carhays Estate is located at a latitude of 50 degrees north. Although the winter here is not freezing, thanks to the warm North Atlantic current. Wind from the sea breezes throughout the year, resulting in cold, humid weather in winter and spring. Conditions not at all favourable for gardening.
To my great-grandfather, it was a very expensive passion. If you take the Forest's 1911 expedition on its own, in today's money, my great-grandfather spent £400,000 funding that expedition on its own.
J.C. Williams believed that only through the introduction and cultivation of new variety of plants could he diversify the plant varieties in the estate. with seeds of magnolia, rhododendron and camellia from the mountains of Yunnan, China, he cultivated the plants he wanted to decorate his garden.
This camellia started flowering in November and it's still flowering in early March and will be flowering on into April. This is the largest camellia in Great Britain and Ireland. Look at this in comparison. There's hybrid vigour for you.
J.C. Williams crossed the Camellia saluenensis from Nujiang in Yunnan with other camellia varieties. In 1925, after 7 years, he succeeded in developing a hardy, flowery breed suitable for outdoor cultivation at high latitudes.
People love the beauty of the plants. They love the story of where they came from and how they were grown and developed. If you create a new plant, and the plant is popular and successful and particularly beautiful, then that plant will be growing in hundreds of years' time, and you will have left something, a legacy.
If the garden is the place where we encounter nature, then sustained cultivation is our way of ensuring that such encounters will continue to be possible. Jinhua is the home of camellia. Its history of camellia cultivation began more than 800 years ago in the southern Song dynasty. He Zongying from Hoshi village in Jinhua is a master camellia grower. He's helping a client grow his camellia. In cutting the rootstock, trimming the scions, joining the scions with the rootstock, securing the graft and bagging it, He Zongying demonstrates swift and nimble prowess. The technique used is grafting, which is what He Zongying is known for. It normally takes over a decade for a camellia to grow from a seedling to 2 meters in height. However, by grafting and cutting from another variety onto established rootstock, the cutting is nurtured by and integrated with the rootstock. The plant will be fully matured after just 3 years.
嫁接的时候，它必须有刀口的呢，肯定要削一个口子，然后把这个枝条也要切成那个刀口的形状，这样插进去呢，它这个接触面大，成为了高。它是完全是靠砧木上面的水分吸上去的，因为你整张叶子的话，它要求的水分就多了，所以我们去掉一半。刚好跟没点欺负，跟没点短发。
The operation looks simple, but it requires years of practice. Compared with grafting, cuttage is a simpler way of cultivation.
扦插的比较简单的，我们这里的话是插在盆子里面的，底下杆子呢3到5公分，这3到5公分是插在土里面的，然后2张叶子是在土上面的。5月底6月初插下去的话呢，40天那个根就开始生了，11月份可以种在大田里面去。
The greatest advantage of cuttage is that it helps preserve the original genes and guarantees certain appearances of the flowers. Flowers are symbols of the gorgeousness of life. They please our eyes and touch our hearts. Flower growers have always been gentle. Some prefer natural and simple approaches to cultivation, while others prefer to be more creative and innovative. In the small town of Chambeuf in central France, the ubiquitous roses tell a tale of peaceful and pleasant local life. More than 100 years ago, Matthias Mayon's great-grandfather made an important decision here and took his flowers far away with him.
Roses, when you put them outside of a rose garden, when you put them outside of your house, you put them in the street, people start to walk in the street. People start to talk to each other in the street, and they sit down on benches, enjoy a little snack, and talk about roses, talk about the color, talk about life. That's the village of birth of my great-grandfather. That's where the family comes from. This village is really in the middle of Europe, in the middle of France and in the middle of Europe. So there's no chance to go out of this village. And my great-grandpa was one of the first person to travel and to bring his roses all over the world.
Today, the international horticultural community classifies roses from the year 1867, the year the French introduced the first hybrid tea rose. The varieties before that year are called old garden roses, and those that came after that year are modern roses. In the field for premium roses in Nice, France, Matthias and his father Alain Mayon will complete the final variety testing before the roses go to market.
We create between 100 to 200,000 new roses every year. We keep maybe 10, 20,000 of them for a couple of years to test them.
Every spring, hundreds of thousands of roses bloom at Mayon's breeding garden. But most of them will not live for long. Only about 3 to 4 varieties will make it into people's gardens. As one of the largest rose breeders in the world, the Mayon family has developed a mature system for breeding hybrid roses. They select and breed the flowers in the nursery garden during the first 3 years. Over the next 3 years, these flowers will be planted in rotation in the soil without fertilizers or weed control, testing their vitality via natural selection. After this stage, they will go through further cultivation and selection for another 3 years. The whole procedure takes about a decade. At the new variety testing site, beauty is not enough. The roses have to be strong enough and vigorous enough to meet the various demands of future planters.
We have only one spring every year, one summer every year. So you need to wait some time, a long delay to make your decision, the final decision. But it's patience, it's not going quick, it's not industry. We are not doing things quick. We are researchers dealing with nature. So we have to admit that nature at its rhythm. And the rhythm of nature is not the rhythm of human being.
Just a little rose, but it bears witness to the development of horticulture in the world, a demonstration of humanity's efforts to understand nature. In turn, interaction with flowers inspires us to keep exploring.
我们现在来看一下引种的方法有哪些。 种子引种，把你看中的这个植物作为它的母本，是不是啊？另外再把另外一个它的，比如说特性比较明显的、观赏性强的、抗性比较强的，把它的花粉适时的啊，一定要是适合的时间授到它的柱头上，那么它就可以结实。这一粒种子就是什么？就是基因重组以后的什么东西呀？F1代，我们也叫杂交1代。啊，高温高湿就会怎么样？容易生病，是不是啊？
Horticulture professor Guo Runhua and her husband Sui Yunji have deep insights into the ways of plants. They used to be classmates in college and have been teaching in Kuitun, Xinjiang since they graduated. Over the years, the couple have been cultivating roses suitable for local conditions.
越冬是一个瓶颈，这个很多很漂亮、非常漂亮的月季，那么经过一个冬天，到第2年春天就冻死了。
海拔是1720。
那个地方
啊，上面那个地方好像还有一点啊，差不多啊。
The Tian Shan Mountains, where Kuitun is located, are rich in wild roses. In the endless ravines of the valley, these wildflowers have adapted to the extreme climate, where the winter temperature averages below -20 degrees Celsius. So the couple crossed wild roses with modern roses to breed new varieties that can resist cold genetically.
主要是想利用它这个比较好的资源，啊，我们做一些呢，到秋天呢，我们过来采一些这个 F1代的果实，然后呢，我们再回去进行处理。好，做的时候慢一点，注意保护雌蕊，不要把雌蕊碰着了。
Despite using flowers of the same genus of Rosa, the results of the hybridization experiment took the couple by surprise.
在做了这么多的这个杂交组合的设计和实践以后，我们发现呢，不能这个受孕，然后呢，它最后也不能结果实，它实际上是一个远缘杂交，这个生殖隔离它不育。
Distant hybridization refers to crossing between two different species of the same genus or two different genera of the same family. This is a difficult topic in horticultural sexual reproduction, with a low success rate and a lack of precise control.
做的过程当中就有意识的想一些办法，查一些资料，看看就是最后查到呢有一种蒙导法，实际上对它的这个远缘杂交还是有一定的帮助。所谓的蒙导呢，就是用他比较熟悉的花粉，他们亲缘关系很近的花粉，先去刺激它，然后呢再用我们的品种月季的花粉，它就是稀里糊涂的，它就可以进行这样的一种亲和了，就授粉授精了嘛。
The couple eventually harvested valuable seeds through hybridization. However, the happiness brought by seeds did not last long. Soon, something else happened that left them scratching their heads once again.
有很多情况下，就是你当年的种子播下去，第2年它春天不萌发。
那么这种现象，我们发现哦，原来它长期的这种休眠，要打破这种休眠，可能要1年的时间。 因为我们发现一个偶然的现象，我们有一年我们播的这个蔷薇种子啊，头1年一个都没出，第2年那块地我们刚好没用上，就空到那儿了。等到第2年的开春的时候，发现它出苗了，就是隔了1年它才出苗。
When to germinate is one of the most important decisions a plant makes in its life. Seeds that germinate too early may be destroyed by cold, and those that germinate too late may miss valuable opportunities for growth. Natural evolution has endowed plants with the capacity for seed dormancy. This amazing adaptation helps with their reproduction. With the seed problem solved, the remaining challenge is whether the new variety can survive the freezing winter. With the arrival of the winter snow, nature enters its dormant phase. Extremely low temperature is a big enough test for wild roses, let alone the hybrid variety that only has some of the genetic features of their wild counterparts.
所以说，咱们说月季啊，说有冻烧有冻烧，抗寒月季都有冻烧。你包括这个野生的，这烧这一部分，它也要冻烧。那不可能保证这么低的环境下，它最末端的这个烧，它都能保证有抗寒。
Never before have the roses endured the harsh cold here. In temperatures of -30 degrees Celsius, they wait for spring to revive. These frozen flowers are the fruits of the couple's painstaking efforts.
你看这个，它这个就太嫩了，这个芽叶就冻死了。这个冬天它是不怕，它再一个就要考验它，就是春天到春寒的时候啊。
It is the ultimate test for the stability of this plantation of a new rose variety. In June, the sun hangs high above the Tian Shan Mountains. Now the roses that have survived the rigors of the coldest seasons burst into bloom. On a single rose, there are nearly 1,000 blossoms, filling the air with long-lasting fragrance. The couple have given their brainchild a name: Auspicious Clouds over the Tian Shan Mountains.
做育种呢，它本身就是一个需要你比较系统和长期坚持的一项工作。首先，它能不能亲和，能不能杂交结果，结了果以后，你播能不能把它播出来？出来以后，你还要再观察几年，所以这都是一个过程。
Just as it is with flowers, it was chance and fate that brought this couple together and into a marriage that has lasted for 32 years. Sharing the beauty we see in our mind's eye, we search, cultivate and change flowers. We assume the role of nurturer, playing an active role in flowers' cycle of life. But cultivation per se is a time-consuming process. Today, scientists are getting involved. They hope the latest research will shed more light on the nature of flowers and shorten the cultivation period. Professor Mohamed Benrahmane, chief scientist of the French National Centre for Scientific Research, sequenced and interpreted the genetic information carried by rose chromosome and identified all 36,377 genes.
modern roses are hybrids between Chinese and European roses mostly. We went back in years and years and checked which rose was introduced into Europe and participated the most to the creation of the 35,000 roses that we find now. And we ended by choosing a Chinese rose called Rosa chinensis, cultivar old blush. Most importantly was, for example, the recurrent flowering, the capacity of the rose to flower for a long time between spring to autumn.
Scientists have focused their attention on these flowers. Old garden roses, cultivated by the ancient Chinese, are still blooming with resilience and vigor. It was their arrival more than 200 years ago that led to the historic breakthrough in rose breeding in Europe. European horticulturalists were thus able to cultivate roses that bloom all year round.
You know, rose, it belongs to the Rosaceae family, to which belong strawberry, raspberry, apple, peach. So you know, the strawberry and rose are very phenotypically different, very different, but at the genetic level they are very close. It helped also understand the domestication of rose, but also to understand the evolution of rose and its cousins.
From growth, blooming to death, the life of flowers is a constant cycle of renewal. It might seem unromantic to think of roses as a commodity, but the fact is that from breeding and cultivation to auction and sale, these beautiful flowers are the basis of a massive global industry.
大家好，我们现在正在看的这一个月季，它是中国古老月季月月粉。我们只能说它抗病菌。做懂了的话，那再给你再推荐一个香火。
Who would have thought it? The allure of rose varieties cultivated by the Chinese ancients is now transmitted through the internet. And who knows how many lives they have changed since they revolutionized the world of roses. In Dounan, Kunming, there is the largest trading market for fresh-cut flowers in China or even Asia. The annual volume of flowers traded here is close to 7 billion. With the approaching of the Qixi festival, the Chinese Valentine's Day, roses are particularly popular in the market. From selecting, inquiring, loading to distributing, it won't take long for the fresh flowers to reach the hands of people across the country as tokens of love and affection. On our planet, plants provide generously and selflessly the most basic raw materials for our survival, without any complaint. But every plant and every flower has a world to itself. Through horticulture, how did we build up subtle connections between us and the flowers, two species that have been coexisting for long on Earth? "20 years ago, Huang Yunpeng leased the barren Laoguan mountain and planted it with camellias. Huang Yunpeng is in his 70s. He's a well-known local herbalist. He has a strict routine for himself. He only works for half a day. In the morning, he works in his clinic, and in the afternoon, he watches over his flowers.
说植物是生命的基础，动物就是生命的本身，水就是生命的源泉。我是大自然的爱好者，喜欢种花种草，所以我想到采茶花。
It hasn't rained for over a month in the city of Zhegung. Because of the lack of nourishment, some camellias in the dense woods on top of the mountain are in need of pruning. Huang Yunpeng does the job himself without any hired help. Despite the heavy workload, he never lets things get on top of him. He's been investing his income from the clinic into the camellias, which now cover the whole mountain. A Chinese saying goes, flowers bloom in their time and the wind comes to pay tribute. Since ancient times, Chinese people have noted the connection between wind and flowers and have marked each of the 24 solar terms with a particular flower that blossoms in that period. Minor cold is represented by camellia. As the flower blooms in the depth of winter, Huang Yunpeng's granddaughter has come to her hometown Zhegung from Nanning, Guangxi for her winter vacation. Her favorite pastime is admiring the camellias on the mountain with her grandfather.
从小时候就每年回家必来的一个地方，不是很能说清楚到底为什么，但就是从大门一进来看那几棵茶花树呀，然后就是越走越深，越走越深。 在开得特别旺盛的季节，就有一种应接不暇的感觉，不自主地一直走下去。就是像这种白茶花一样，就是你一看到它，你就觉得它特别好看。我记得我以前经过它的时候，很多茶花我不知道它为什么没有枯萎，它就落下来了。它落下来的时候，你好像可以听见它那一个声音。
Having grown up in Nanning, Huang Shusu cannot always understand her grandfather's Zhegung dialect. Even now, she does not know why he likes planting camellias so much, but this happy experience of walking among the camellias with her grandfather will likely stay in her memory for many years to come.
青年、中年、衰老，是吗？Come on， 人也是幼年、中年、老年完了。
It is easier to look at flowers than to plant them. To create this amazing garden, Huang Yunpeng has spent every afternoon of the past 20 years working alone on the mountain.
10年莫如树木，终身莫如树人。花瓣、花蕊、花萼、花柄，那咋子长成的？颜色是啥子呢？你要去深思熟虑了，你就是一种享受。我跟大家我的病人说的，3个标准达到啊，就对。睡着啊，就是幸福；吃饱啊。 就是云养，自由就是快乐，快乐、幸福、自由，这3大标准就达到啊！你人还追求啥子？
Huang Yunpeng's life is simple and regular, and he has got the best of companions, his camellias and nature.
花要看到这半开时，这种半开半闭的花。 酒要吃到尾最后，将将的有滴点的醉，就舒服。
With a few dishes and a bottle of Chinese spirit, the family is having a get-together. For them, a Chinese New Year is only complete with beautiful camellias. Another year starts. The Zhegung night is bright with lanterns on the streets. Everyone is looking forward to the arrival of spring. Some people say that gardening is a sense of responsibility towards nature. It's about insisting on giving all your kindness in the right way. No matter when and where, such kindness speaks of our common pursuit of beauty. Nantes and Brittany in western France have been known as the cradle of camellia for more than 200 years. Their climate and soil provide a favourable environment for camellia.
Camellia est une plante très reconnue, quoi. En France, offrir un camellia, c'est un beau signe. C'est des plantes nobles, hein, on dit on a des plantes nobles, des belles plantes qui sont, vous voyez, comme je disais, qui sont très florifères, c'est majestueux, c'est beau, c'est élégant, quoi. Ouais. Alors oui, le camélia est un symbole, hein, donc au 19e siècle, même au début du 20e siècle, c'était un signe de beauté. On mettait une fleur à la boutonnière pour les femmes, et les hommes aussi portaient une fleur de camélia.
The biannual International Camellia Society Congress is held at Nantes in France this year. Camellia lovers from all over the world come to share, exchange and discuss the future of camellia. Wan Kai-yun from Kunming Institute of Botany, who is also the president of the International Camellia Society, meets here with the mayor of Nantes. In front of the assembled international audience, a bottle of oolong tea is poured on a new variety of camellia in a special baptizing ceremony. A camellia named Lady of Nantes has become a new source of pride for local people.
It's actually the symbol of the friendship. I think she will grow healthy, happy, and she will bring us a lot of happiness, health, not only to people from Nantes, but to the people in the whole world, and bring us prosperity in the future. Thank you very much.
Flowers seem to possess some of the most primitive and ingrained human instincts, namely to turn to nature for emotional expression. Through gardening, we are able to reconstruct our relationship with nature. By exploring and seeking to understand flowers, we also get the chance to re-examine our own lives. As the old saying goes, no garden is born out of darkness, and those who care for flowers are the allies of light. Like bees, we have an intimate relationship with flowers. It is an ancient relationship, and one that enables us to find hope and fulfillment in gardening.